On this Monday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, could Jamal Hill be the Texans steal of the draft? They found Jews everywhere. And Jawar Jordan's potential impact in year one.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, to this Monday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your Texans football analyst, Johnson Sports Guy Hickman. On the other side of the screen, Texans credential media member, Sports Illustrated's own. Thank you to all of our returning listeners coming back, and thank you to all of our first-time listeners. Please subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We all have a competitive side. Mine just so happens to be a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play.
And on this Monday installment of Locked On Texans, we might as well call this the JJ Show, or Good Times, as I must say, because we will be talking about two different JJs here on this show. First and foremost, we got to take a look at the new JJ, Jamal Jordan, the new running back that the Houston Texans drafted in the 6th round, and take a look at his impact and his potential role for the Houston Texans in 2024. Then we're going to close out this show talking about the old JJ and whether or not he should and can return to the Houston Texans. But we're going to open this Monday installment of Locked On Texans looking at Jamal Hill's impact, because, John, we have talked a lot about the linebacker unit. We already know the drill. If the season starts tomorrow, you already know who your two top linebackers going to be. The biggest question is, can Henry T make that leap in year 2? However, there are a couple guys that the Houston Texans were able to add to this roster where we if Henry T cannot make that jump, then we can see them definitely, replacing Henry T in the defensive snaps. And the one guy that I keep hearing a lot about is Jamal Hill, the 6th round pick the Houston Texans drafted in the 2024 NFL draft. And this young man, I really do think he has the potential. And it wasn't until we had Big Sarge on Friday, I had an opportunity to go back and re-listen to his introductory press conference that we did right after he got drafted. I realized why so many people were high on Jamal Hill when they drafted him. Because first and foremost, there are several players throughout this whole entire draft, whether in the city of Houston or not, that we could consider the quote-unquote diamonds in the rough. But when you take a look at Jamal Hill, he fit that narrative, not due to his talents, but due to the potential impact that he can have on this organization in year 1. Because, John, listening to viewers, you guys know me. The biggest thing I wanted to see the Houston Texans improve upon for this upcoming season is their passing defense. They finished in the bottom half of the league, I believe, like 24, 25, 26, somewhere along those lines. And we all know, even though you have one of the top tier cornerbacks in the league, you still got to see who's going to start at CB number 2, and even your safety union. Yes, we all are high on Kalen Bullock, but we still don't know if we could fully trust Jimmy Ward and Jalen Petrie. However, I do want to take a look at that second level, that linebacker level, and I take a look at it from a standpoint, look, if they could find a way to improve their passing defense within that linebacking unit, I really do believe that this defense is definitely going to take leaps in that attribute. And when you take a look at Jamal Hill, a guy who literally started his collegiate career at Oregon as a defensive back, but his head coach told him, look, you have some really good skill sets as a pass defender, but you can also be utilized as a linebacker as well. He made that switch, and over the last 2 seasons, he became one of the best linebackers in the nation. He said, this is probably one of my favorite quotes of the draft. He said, the best part of my game is running and tackling. However, my ability to cover tight ends, running back, and slot receivers make me a valuable asset. I really do believe that the Houston Texans have something special in this kid.
Yeah, and then when you look at just him being able to cover running backs, tight ends, slots, right? You look at a 4.4 40. On one hand, you got a linebacker in Jamal Hill again, moved from DB to inside linebacker, played all 14 games as a senior, made 7 starts, finished with 31 tackles, 13 solos, while adding 5 tackles for loss and 2 sacks. Well, you look at just being able to transition from safety to linebacker, and the controversy around Kamari Lassiter's 40 speed. You got a coach that had a 4.6, 4.4, 4.5, excuse me. You got a linebacker for Houston who has a 4.41 40 speed. So yeah, I don't think that'll be an issue for him. And to do a little bit deep diving on why he could be a steal of the draft. And let me just say this: I think every team has a steal of a draft potentially. And I think specifically for the 2024 NFL draft, Houston, when you look at Stover, Hill, Jawar Jordan, they have their picks of who can be our steal of the draft, especially considering they didn't pick until the second round. But with Hill, as a linebacker who has safety experience, the play recognition is great for this young man. I mean, he reads and reacts to the ball. He doesn't overcommit to the run or the pass on his first step, which I like a lot from a linebacker. Doesn't compromise his position while also having good balance to commit to the run or pass once the play develops. So you don't see a lot of just bad footwork from him as a linebacker. Again, his experience before making that move, I believe, helps with that. And also, you may consider him to be undersized. Looking at him as 6'1", 6 foot, 220, 225, but that's around Christian Harris size as well. Harris is also 6'1", 225, 230, maybe. Maybe he's at 230. But Hill knows how to tackle and is a violent hitter at times. He flows to his zone while reading the ball pretty well. And I look at what's his capability to play zone for Houston as a former safety, but more so once Houston want to man up with somebody on the defensive side of the ball. Again, he just has some traits as a pass cover linebacker that makes you really sit back and say, once he is able to hit his stride and develop into a NFL linebacker, does not have a lot of linebacker experience. And one of my things in my notes about him is he doesn't shed off of blocks naturally. He's not like good at that. That's a part of his game that I believe he needs to improve on. That may be the most part of his game that he needs to improve on the most, excuse me. But when you look at his ability for once he develops and for what he can do naturally as a pass defender, because he made that transition, what makes him somewhat of a steal, and I'm not predicting this will happen this year for Houston, Cody, and listeners, but how creative can D'Amico get when you got a guy out there who, like Fred Warner, was able to do a lot of different things as a linebacker? Like we saw out of Christian Harris the second half of last year, was able to do a bunch of different things, dropping back in coverage as a linebacker. Again, we can highlight the pick six in the playoffs, right? You look at that, that's where you say, okay, Jamal Hill could be a steal for this team in the draft, because he has a lot of things in his skill set, instinctually that he can do, athletically he can do, because he's worked over time that he can do as a pass defender at the linebacker spot. And again, in the open field, that's where you see him deliver some of those more violent hits. He doesn't do a good job of getting off those blocks. But I like this young man for Houston because I like that we could potentially see him develop into a very good player for this team. Not a star, not a stud, not a Pro Bowler, not an All-Pro. Not saying he can't reach those levels, but in year 3 in his career, will we be looking back and saying, wow, he's in more snaps right now. The last 2 years, just featuring around 25 defensive snaps. Now we're looking at him at 45, 50 of the defensive snaps played. And here's why: he's a very impactful player for this team's defense. So I like Hill. I like the tape on him. Again, there's some things he just got to naturally work on. But the things that he's naturally good at, I don't see D'Amico wasting his rookie year by not giving him the opportunity to get creative with him, right? Maybe between 15 and 20% of defensive snaps played, and you'll see some of those things flash on the screen at times. It's going to be a preseason a guy that we're going to love. I think that. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home big wins of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to spend to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Monday installment of Locked On Texans. And I think we need to have a fair, realistic conversation about Jamal Jordan. Because when you take a look at everything that Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryan said before the draft, during the draft, and after the draft, the one thing that I kept holding on to was the word competition. Outside of quarterback, of course, they want to create competition at every position. Rightfully so in the offensive backfield when you take a look at the running back group. Now, we all know Joe Mixon is going to be RB1, but we know Bobby Sloy, he wants to run a dual running back system. And when they drafted Jordan, I'm not going to lie to you, John, I thought that he was going to easily take the helm as RB2. No disrespect to Dameon Pierce, but once again, when you take a look at the disappointing year that he had last year, it's like it's hard to see him reclaiming that role for this upcoming season, knowing that the expectations and the stakes for this organization are at an all-time high. But last Tuesday, Nick Caserio goes on Sports Radio 610, and he talks about Dameon Pierce still having a very important role to play for this organization, and rightfully so. So I look at Jordan, I look at Dameon Pierce, and I think when we take a look at, camp battles that probably about to start now with rookie mini camp starting this weekend, I think that is going to be arguably, if not the most interesting battle out of every single position. Because on one hand, you have a guy in Jordan who can impact the game in the rushing attack and the passing attack. His last year at Louisville, rushed for a career best over, I think, 1,300 yards. But at the same time, you also got to take a look at the potential that's still there with Dameon Pierce. And not only that, the experience that he has. Because if this team is trying to get to championship contention and stuff, they're going to be relying on a lot of their more experienced players than all of these young prospects that's trying to make their way. But when you take a look at Jarrell, I think the biggest issue is what is a realistic expectation for him, at least right now in year one? For me, I think it's just him, affecting the game more so on the special teams. But more importantly, being a contingency plan if things do not work out with Dameon Pierce, not in the regular season, but more so in training camp, but probably as early as OTAs.
I think that's the best way to look at it, Cody. We don't know. I mean, man. So Nick Caserio just spoke, I think, highly of Dameon Pierce last week. Said he's a big part of our plans, which is great to hear, honestly. But when you look at just where he was at with this team last year, it got kind of dark for Dameon Pierce. Not in the sense of just, Cody, what you mentioned, you said all the time. Things just seemed off for DP last year. On the sideline, in the locker room, like as the season progressed, things just didn't look, I think, as favorable as they did his rookie year. And so with that question mark surrounding Dameon Pierce, again, I think he'll make this team. I think he has a good shot. I think that, with his special team ability to being a return guy really helps him out to make this team. But as a running back, we can't sit here and say, well, I think he has a chance to be the solidified running back too. I don't think that's the case. And I think he'll compete for that. But I think, like you put it, Jawar Jordan, I think that's what he's here for. He'll have a shot, right? And one thing about Jordan, when you look at his impact, I don't think he's going from a system he has thrived in to a new system he has to learn a lot. I mean, again, he did a very good job of running behind his blocks at Louisville. He had a lot of zone run opportunities in his career at Louisville, so he's not new to this. He's true to this, and that's what I like the most about him. I don't know if by the end of the year we're looking at Jordan and he even has a real impact because Damian Pierce just may bounce back that good. And that's just the reality of the situation. A lot of us want to see it. Like we want to see him get back to that point in his career. But that's a move, Jawar Jordan, drafting him. That was one of the best contingency plans that we saw from Houston in the last couple of years. Like you got Blake Fisher, that was a good contingency plan. Jawar Jordan, I think, is right along that because once Joe Mixon moves around, you're looking at a guy, if he's still on this roster and he has the opportunity to build and grow with this team and just get accustomed to the NFL level, by the time he starts taking potentially a lot of snaps, he's still fresh. And he can be a part of Houston's run by being the youngin on his team at that position who can do a bunch of different things. And so whether it's the return game like Damian Pierce, whether it's trusting him in the screen game, whether it's just giving him flat out run opportunities, but that's a Bobby Slow type of running back. That's a West Coast type of running back. And his impact will be felt. Maybe not in year one, but year two, I see him being more of an impact for running back. Game off. All right. We got to pause here for a moment to talk Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play, man. You've already talked about that. You opened up the show with it. How many more times we got to hear? I get it, but guys, it's some good stuff going on in this game. I got my wife addicted to it now. You can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. There's so much to get. Unique stickers, cool new playing pieces to travel the board with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench, get off the couch, get on your phone, download it for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. There's no way we was going to close this show out without talking about J.J. Watt and the possible return of J.J. Watt to this team. Over the weekend, J.J. Watt was interviewed, and I got to read the quote because I want to make sure that I give it to you guys straight. J.J. Watt said that if D'Amico absolutely needs him, he'll come out of retirement. Now, we've seen players in the past retire, come back to the game, and be pretty good at their jobs. Brett Favre. I know a lot of people don't like Brett Favre, but Brett Favre retired
he really
a lot.
retired, though. It was more so, I don't want to be here. Let me get out this contract, and I'm back.
Brett Favre is on the list. Deion Sanders is on that list. Marshawn Lynch is on that list. Rob Gronkowski is on that list. Tom Brady is on that list. Hey, man. Ricky Williams is on that list. Reggie White is on it. Reggie White is on the list. So it's not far-fetched that he can retire and come back and still be somewhat of a good player.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I think my question is, why, bro?
He's not coming back. You know what? We all thought about this, but when I listened to that quote, when I read the quote, you know what gave it away for me? The absolutely. Like, unless you have no other option, like everybody went down, you have no other options, or you feel for at least for this particular game, he's going to be enough to affect Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, or whatever the case. That absolutely is what got me. John, I don't see J.J. Watt coming back, man. I mean, I know it will make for a great story. I mean, if we keeping it a buck, if he does come back, this might be the best team that he ever had here in the city of Houston. No disrespect to 2012 now, But I mean, come on now, or 18. But come on now, I don't think, like we always say, when you take a look at this version of the Texans, you never had all three from ownership, the people on the sideline and the players themselves on and off the field, on and off the field, quarterback on and off more so off the field. But, it's just like you never had everything all at once for the Texans to be true contenders. I would like for JJ to come back, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that man is enjoying his life. And two, most importantly, I don't want him to mess up. Yeah, fatherhood, which is something he is loving, by the way. But I personally don't want him to mess up arguably the greatest Hall of Fame class of all time. Because I believe in 2027, it's going to be him and Tom Brady. And somebody else, I can't remember who it is, and I was like, yo, that's gonna be the greatest Hall of Fame class of all time. But they absolutely gave it away. D'Amico, I don't see D'Amico ringing JJ up at any point saying, hey, would you like to come back? I know we all want to see him get that Super Bowl ring, but I don't see it happening, man. I truly don't.
If there was a way, well, there are ways to work it out. If Houston is like really primed to go on a deep playoff run, I would love for them to just sign him.
But it ain't gonna be the same though, man. Like
you just want to see him out there. You want to if they win a chip, you want to see him out there.
Yeah, but put it like this, John. When I picture JJ winning the chip, I always picture him winning it as the man or one of the man. Like, even if he comes back, like, he's gonna be situational purposes at best. I mean, he's not gonna start. I mean, I don't see him being as impactful as he was. Like, no. I don't know.
In fairness to JJ, give him credit. Last year in the NFL, he played some damn good football.
Yeah, he did. And I will say the only thing that ever stopped JJ was injuries. I mean, I was just speaking of that last year. Wasn't that last year was the year in Arizona where, he had to get like his heart shot back into rhythm or something like that, which is beyond scary if you ask me. But I wanted to see JJ Watt winning the Super Bowl ring, like I said, as one of the guys or maybe the guys, because had the Texans won it in his prime, he definitely would have been Super Bowl MVP. I don't want to see JJ Watt winning. How can I put this? Participation Super Bowl ring. Your name is on the roster, so here you go.
Oh man, I don't know. But good point to what you said. Absolutely, he needs to absolutely be needed. Yeah, it's you'll get you know what? I don't know. Just sign him to an active roster or something while he's in the stands. I don't know, but no, I don't think JJ should return. In all honesty, I think JJ will probably serve a better role for this team in some type of coaching advisory role.
That's coming for sure.
You look at the ways that he can impact the game off the field now with his knowledge. I would rather see that transition from player to coach in that aspect than from player to retiree to coming back for a chance and a hope to win something that you wanted to win as a player. You didn't get opportunity to do so because you're a quarterback that is eligible for the Hall of Fame in 2026. Was not able to get it done or was hurt that 1 year. The team was actually primed to win the Super Bowl. So there we go.
Yeah, it's true.
Matt Schaub is eligible for the Hall of Fame in 2026. So make sure y'all vote. Make sure y'all listen to the next episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Also, subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Matt Schaub catch a lot of flack, man. I mean, for Houston, he had some very good years. He's eligible for the Hall of Fame in 2026. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at Cody Davis _24. Once again, that's Cody COTYDAVIS _24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.